A streak of headlights cut through the rain-soaked darkness as Hannah stumbled toward the small cafe, every step heavy with the weight of humiliation. Mud dripped from her skirt, streaked across her arms, and clung to her hair like a cruel reminder of how unfair life could be. She paused at the doorway, shivering, knowing that anyone who saw her like this would turn away in disgust. And yet, inside waited a man she had never met, a blind date she had agreed to only because someone insisted she deserved a chance at happiness. But fate, as always, seemed determined to embarrass her. Before you sink into this emotional journey, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the beauty of human hearts, then please like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Hannah took a deep breath, stepped through the warm entrance, and felt a dozen eyes fall on her. Conversations dipped. Chairs paused mid-scrape. The smell of roasted coffee drifted through the air, mixing with the earthy scent of wet mud that clung to her clothes. She felt like she was sinking into the floor, wishing she could disappear. She had already spent the morning fighting to keep her dignity intact. A broken-down bus, a half-mile walk through a construction site, slipping into a ditch filled with rainwater, everything conspired to ruin her first attempt at meeting someone new since her life had fallen apart. She had lost her job 3 months earlier, followed by her apartment. She was now renting a small, damp room behind an elderly woman's house, sharing one electric heater and surviving on whatever temporary cleaning jobs she could find. She had barely scraped together enough money to buy new shoes, and now even those were ruined. As she scanned the cafe, she spotted him, Ethan. He sat by the window, a quiet man with tired eyes, a soft blue sweater, and a stack of papers beside him. He looked up, expecting someone else, someone put together and confident. The moment his gaze landed on her, Hannah braced herself for the familiar reaction, shock, then pity, then rejection. She waited for him to shake his head, gather his things, and leave like so many others had done when they realized she came with hardship instead of glamour. But instead, Ethan's expression shifted from surprise to something else, something she couldn't name. He stood up slowly, walked toward her with unhurried steps, and the room seemed to hold its breath. She imagined herself through his eyes, a young woman covered in mud, trembling, clearly struggling. She expected him to laugh or at least offer an excuse to escape the uncomfortable situation. But Ethan simply picked up a napkin from a nearby table and gently handed it to her. His face wasn't mocking or judgmental, it held an attentive softness, a warmth she wasn't used to receiving. She could barely whisper an apology before he pulled out a chair for her, motioning for her to sit. Hannah felt a lump in her throat. This wasn't pity, it was kindness, pure and simple, and she hadn't experienced that in a long time. She tried to explain what had happened, stumbling over her words, feeling more and more exposed. But he only listened with the patience of someone who had lived through his own storms. He understood chaos, that much was clear. He eventually told her about his own life, not in a boastful way, but like someone offering pieces of himself to help her feel safe. He was a single father raising a 5-year-old daughter named Lily, a little girl with curls that bounced whenever she ran and eyes that held a whole universe in them. His wife, Lily's mother, had passed away 2 years earlier after a long illness, leaving Ethan grieving, exhausted, and afraid he wasn't enough for his daughter. He wasn't looking for perfection. He wasn't chasing beauty or glamour. He was searching for someone with sincerity, compassion, resilience, qualities Hannah had been forced to develop through hardship. As the rain continued tapping against the window, the cafe became a little world of warmth around them. Hannah found herself relaxing for the first time in months, her shoulders sinking as Ethan made her laugh at small, silly things. He spoke gently, yet with a quiet strength. He didn't stare at the mud on her clothes, didn't wince at the state she was in, didn't question why she came. Instead, he seemed to see past the surface, as if the mud and ruined shoes were only temporary coverings over a heart that was still fiercely alive. Hannah felt fragile, her emotions stirred awake. She didn't know why a stranger's kindness affected her so deeply, but perhaps it was because life had drained her of hope until she forgot how to recognize it. A small voice broke the moment when Lily suddenly appeared beside Ethan's chair, returning from the children's reading corner where she had been waiting. The child blinked at Hannah with innocent curiosity, then smiled, bright and sincere, as if mud was nothing more than a funny surprise. She climbed onto Ethan's lap and whispered something in his ear, making him chuckle softly. Hannah watched them, her chest tightening not with heartbreak, but with warmth. It was rare to see a man so gentle with his child, so patient, so present. And when Lily asked if Hannah had been playing in the rain, Hannah laughed, really laughed, for the first time in a long while. The cafe workers gradually lost interest in her appearance, and conversation resumed around them. But for Hannah, the world had shifted. What was meant to be a moment of shame had become a turning point. Ethan suggested they go somewhere more comfortable and offered her his jacket to keep warm. He wasn't trying to impress her. He wasn't calculating. His sincerity was disarming. They stepped outside together, the rain now a soft drizzle, and he held an umbrella over her even though it meant half his shoulder got wet. He guided her to his car with gentle reassurance, and Hannah felt protected, not because he acted like a savior, but because he didn't treat her like a burden. He drove them to a small bakery that smelled of warm bread and cinnamon. He bought her tea while Lily munched on a small pastry. Hannah felt the heaviness of her past begin to lift, not disappear, but lighten, because someone finally looked at her without seeing her scars as disqualifications. She told Ethan about her struggles, her job loss, the fear of failing at life. She admitted she almost didn't come to the date because she felt undeserving of happiness. Ethan listened, not offering empty promises, but real empathy. He shared how he battled loneliness and guilt, how being a single parent kept him on his feet even when grief tried to pull him under. They weren't two perfect strangers meeting by chance. They were two imperfect souls who recognized the quiet suffering in each other. As the evening stretched on, something unspoken grew between them. Hannah felt safe. She felt seen. And Ethan, with his steady presence, seemed to feel the same. When he finally drove her home, he didn't judge her small rented room or the peeling paint on the windows. He simply walked her to the door and told her he was glad she showed up, even covered in mud, because otherwise he would have missed meeting the most genuine person he'd encountered in years. She held his jacket close for a moment, her eyes stinging with tears she tried to hide, and then he reached out to gently squeeze her hand before saying goodnight. Days passed, and Ethan didn't disappear like people usually did. He texted, he called, he asked how she was doing. He invited her to the park with him and Lily, and Hannah found herself slowly returning to life. With his encouragement, she regained confidence, applied for better jobs, and eventually found steady work at a local community center. She started saving money again, not out of fear but out of hope. She laughed more. She breathed more freely. She began to see herself as someone worthy of love, not someone life had forgotten. Their bond deepened over months, slowly but surely. The mud-covered date became their favorite story, the moment everything changed. Hannah helped Lily learn to braid her hair, and Lily insisted on teaching